Hey, what's going on, YouTube? This is Acadius, and it is finally time to start talking about Ashes of Creation. This is a game that I have been wanting to talk about for a while now, but other videos have been taking priority, but no longer. I'm putting my foot down here because I am looking forward to this game like everyone else, and I am approaching with some healthy skepticism. There's definitely some very concerning decisions being made over at Intrepid, and it honestly worries me that no one seems to be talking about them. As you may have guessed from the title, I will only be talking about the races in this video, and I will be getting my information straight from their own wiki, so let's get right to it. And the first thing I want to do is to read a quote from the man, the myth, the legend, Stephen Sharif himself. I didn't feel that it was necessary to recreate the wheel on races from a fantasy perspective. I'm not sure how much that would add to the flavor of the game. Really, Stephen? You didn't think you should recreate the wheel. You don't want to recreate the wheel, huh? Well, let's see if you've recreated any wheels, shall we?
But I didn't feel that it was necessary to recreate the wheel on races from a fantasy perspective. I'm not sure how much that would add to the flavor of the game.
So with that out of the way, let's talk about humans. The species that we all are. The one that is typically the most commonly played in MMOs. So common that I can't even think of a single RPG that doesn't have humans as an option. The appearances of humans shown in the character creator look pretty good, and the options seem reasonably varied, and that is great. Being able to craft the looks of your character in order to perfectly create the vision in your mind of how you want your character to look is awesome and only serves to improve your experience as you set out on your adventure in this brand new world. The devs even created Asmongold and Old Man Asmongold using their powerful character creator. But one thing I do take issue with is the splitting of humans into two races and renaming them. Typical humans, what we all are called Kalar, but Jinn human hybrids are called Veloon. Jinn are typically considered to be a monster race, and monster human hybrids aren't considered to be human. They are considered to be a demi human species. Definitely not reinventing any wheels.
But I didn't feel that it was necessary to recreate the wheel on races.
And these Valoon are nothing more than the human character models that have just been recolored to look like Smurfs that have glowing eyes. Papa Smurf got a glowing eye now. Woo! This has to be one of the laziest attempts to create a race I've ever seen. But I just can't help but wonder, why even bother? Just call them what they are, Jinn, not humans, and make them look like more than just a shameless reskin, and now you get two very separate and unique races. Next up is dwarves. And just look at these names though. It doesn't make any sense. Where do they even get this crap from? The typical dwarves are Dunir, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. And then the Samoan dwarves are called Nakua. I have no idea. The Dunir character models look great. No complaints here. It's pretty much what you would expect from a dwarf. And honestly, I think they look way better than most dwarves I've seen in other MMOs. But what's with these specific Islander dwarves? I'm pretty sure that's exactly what everyone has been wanting for the last 20 years, right? We've all just been wondering, when can I play as a Samoan looking dwarf? I want Jason Momoa, but, 3.5 feet tall. Who the hell came up with this idea? We certainly don't want dark dwarves that not only look badass, but they also have innate psionic abilities. No, we don't want those guys that we've been fighting against for years, but have never been able to play. What would really be exciting is if we could play as a dwarf who's pudgy, lazy, total surfer bro. Great idea, Steven. We're definitely not reinventing any wheels, are we?
But I didn't feel that it was necessary to recreate the wheel on races.
And then we have the two orc races, which are called the Rinkai and the Vek. Now, the Renkai are your standard looking green skinned orcs, and the ones that the devs showed look pretty darn good. And the Vek also looked great, but the Vek are once again not orcs. In fact, they are a different species altogether that we all know to be trolls. They're literally what you get when you ask yourself the question, what if the trolls in World of Warcraft were redone in Unreal 5 and then given a weird name for absolutely no reason? I guess Steven's logic is kind of like, they both have tusks, so they are both the same species. Durr. They aren't trolls, guys. They're orcs. And this isn't an elephant, it's a wild boar. Then we have the High Elves, or Erudites for those EverQuest players out there, and the Wood Elves. These are once again renamed to Empyrean and Pyre, respectively. Amazingly, both of these races not only look great, but also fit their parent race type. Finally, two separate races that both fit their parent species type without just being a shameless recoloration of an existing skin. And finally, this brings us to the Tolnar, whom I am definitely most excited about. But just as with the other races, we need to stop calling them this stupid made up bullshit name and start calling them what they actually are beastmen. First of all, they look awesome. And when you think about it, they're really giving us three different races under the umbrella of beastmen. So the three races shown are gorilla men, lion men, and lizard men. Maybe dragonkin, hard to tell. I'm leaning on lizard men though. Within already established fantasy like the Warhammer 40k universe, these various beastman races resemble different animals and they all have horns. The inclusion of beastmen as playable races is a huge step in the right direction, if you ask me, and I'm so happy to see that they didn't use the played out Minotaur. Everybody keeps trying to do it, everybody keeps messing it up. Looking at you, World of Warcraft, stupid Tauren. It's so refreshing to see some new Beastman races to play as, and their inclusion into an MMO is long overdue, and I will definitely be playing as one of these races when the game releases. So, in this video, I've done a little bit of praising, a little bit of bitching. Now let's do a little bit of theoretical fixing. And first up, we got the humans. You gotta have the humans in an RPG because what else are the filthy casuals gonna play as? And it's not like the majority of the player base want to be able to, I don't know, role play as a evil monster straight out of Overlord that just wants to watch the world burn, like me. So, yeah, I get it. We gotta have humans. And next up are the Jinn. And here they're going to be a separate and distinct race. Very unique. They're not going to have legs. They're going to have the typical genie kind of wind thing going on from the waist down. And you might be saying, oh man, but that takes way more development time and blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. But we're going to make use of that when we get further down this list. Okay, so it's not just going to be this one-off race that you have to create separate rigging for the waist down for the movement of the wind and stuff like that. We're going to make use of that. You'll see. Then we have the dwarves. And honestly, there's not a whole lot to say here. The dwarves in the game look great. The typical dwarves. You got to have dwarves. Everybody wants to roleplay as Gimli for some reason. I don't know. People love it, so you gotta have it in the game. And next up is the Dark Dwarves slash Necomata. Now, personally, I would prefer to see Dark Dwarves. I've fought against Dark Dwarves so many times, but I've never been able to play as a Dark Dwarf. So I think that would be cool. But there's something to be said for the Necomata. And for those that don't know, they're cat girls. It's cat girls, hot chicks with cat ears and a cat tail. Cool. You gotta have the cat girls sometimes. It does great for Final Fantasy 14. So at this point, it's kind of hard to ignore the fact that Catgirls are a super popular race in Final Fantasy XIV. You're wanting your game to do well. Why would you not add a already proven to be beloved race into your game? That doesn't make any financial business sense. Just put them in there. Who cares? I don't really like Catgirls, but tons of people disagree with me. So, they have money too. Put them in the game so your game can do well. And next we have the orcs and trolls. Nothing to really change here except for, the name, because let's not reinvent the wheel. They're orcs and trolls. It's pretty freaking obvious. I would really have liked to have seen something better for the trolls than just a shameless, up graphic version, better quality version of the trolls from World of Warcraft. And that's pretty much all they did. They just looked at the trolls in World of Warcraft. They sit there and studied the character creator, like, oh man, what would this look like if it was in better graphics? We gotta have the same thing. Yes, make it happen. So says Steven. That was a little bit much here. I would have liked to seen something more akin to maybe Lord of the Rings trolls, or maybe a new imagining of the way trolls look. But I don't know. I guess they just want to save money and they don't want to really put too much brain power into this. So they just carbon copied World of Warcraft trolls and put them in better graphics in UE5. There you go. Be happy with what we give you, I guess. And next up is the elves. Now, notice I wouldn't put high elves and wood elves in the release of the game. And, Blizzard did the same thing here, where when it first released, WoW only had night elves, one elf choice, right? Not two elf choices, because it just muddies the waters of the elves. Later on they added blood elves, which is fine. That's fine. I don't have a problem with them say adding wood elves into the game later. I just don't think that it should be a choice at the beginning at the launch. I would rather see something different than another elf. Yet another elf. Yeah, we can't have too many freaking elves, man. But just nothing but elves. We'll have a game with nothing but elves. No, don't do that. Just elves. Just give us a generic elf. Who cares? Like it doesn't matter. If a player is going to play as a wood elf, or if a player is going to play as a high elf, if you just make a generic elf, those same people are going to play elves. It's not going to change anything. And then we have Medusas. Now, Medusas, I've talked about in a previous video of mine. We've never been able to play as a Medusa. They do have a whole race unto themselves in D&D, and in D&D you can play as a Medusa. But we've never been able to play one in MMO. And honestly, this is where this comes into play with the Jin, the lower body rigging. If you think about the way like tornadoes, the bottom of tornadoes can move and stuff, and they can kind of bend. Well, that's kind of similar, but not exactly the same as a Medusa whose lower half is that of a snake. And they could use that rigging to save some time between making those two races and therefore save money. So that would be great. You could use the rigging from the Jin to help you make the rigging for the Medusa, and then now you can save some time and introduce an all new race that we've never been able to play as. Honestly, I think this is a huge missed opportunity for the development team. Uh, I don't know why no other MMOs have even done it or even tried it, but I think that would add a heck of a lot to the game. And last but not least is the Beastmen. And again, similar to orcs and trolls, I don't think there's anything to change here other than the name. Again, let's not reinvent the wheel. Just call them what they are. They're beastmen. We're playing as races of beastmen. And when you add all this up, what? 2, 4, 6, 8, and then plus 3 for beastmen. You got 11 races. And I think that would be like way better advertisement for our game. Hey, we've got 11 distinct races that you can play as in this game at launch. Wow, okay, that's a lot of races. That's awesome. So I'm not sure why they're shoehorning them into this little umbrella to truncate them, and condense them. And you're like, well, you got this, you got like 5 races. Okay, no, you don't. You have 11 races. That's how it should be. I don't. Why are they doing this? It makes no sense. So that's it for my take on the races of Ashes of Creation and also how I would fix them. If you like this video, then be sure to like and subscribe so you can keep up with my content. And if you have some thoughts, then leave them in the comment section below. And I will see you in my next video.